My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. I just want a little breakfast.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Punks, a podcast about weird shit, DIY punk and trashy movies, brought to you by Shamsi Roasters and Deadbeat Donuts. From Hastings, I'm Siobhan.
And I'm Dave, and on this episode we're going to be talking about the American comedian Bill Hicks and reviewing the film Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers from 1988.
But first, let's have a song. This is a song from a band called Doomscroll. They're a band from Colorado, and this song is coming off of their album called A Moral Compass. It'll be out on the 23rd of July, and the song is called When Will I Disappear?
Half as much as my old heart. Never minding riddles, the secret's still enclosed, and I'm giving up on jigsaw smarts. These days my tongue locks is silent in the comfort of my lap. My sore days are over, but my new one's best at that. But I quit bitches yet. I got some fights still left in me. Split on some bad shake tea. All my shoes like dust. My soul is still touching this house has turned all to rust. It's making cold. Childhood, you longer every year. When will I disappear? All my shoes like dust. My soul is still touching this house has turned all to rust. It's making it cold to live this wanderlust. Keeps catching up fire, we're bound to take with the gust. So we're bound to do what we love.
Of the news this Thursday.
Breaking news is part of this job.
You are fake news. This is what's happening in your world tonight. It's fucking news.
So my first bit of news is that Manchester Punk Festival has been fully announced and tickets are on sale. In fact, I think they've sold all their early bird tickets now. And they've released their first lot of bands.
It's quite a list.
Yeah, it is quite a list. Martha are on there, so very excited about that. I haven't seen them in ages. I'm quite excited about Red City Radio, actually, now that I see that they're on
we saw
there.
Red City Radio years ago. Well, a few times, but we saw them at Groves Rock.
We saw them at Groves Rock for the first time.
6 or 7 years ago, and then we saw them at the Windmill.
2014.
And Pears supported them. Do you remember?
That was such a show.
That was a good gig, that.
No, someone else. Anyway, there was a really good gig. But there's loads of bands that we've played on here as well.
Friends of the show.
Friends of the show. Who have we got on there? Sewer Cats are on there. Forlorn are on there. Corrupt Vision. They're the ones from Orange County.
Yeah.
I think.
In Evil Hour, Knife Club.
There you go. There's tons of bands.
Friends of the Show, Plot 32.
Oi.
If they release new music, we certainly will be playing it.
Exactly, sort your lives out. No, I'm joking. Christmas, we released... We didn't release it.
No,
Christ.
no.
We played something from the lead singer's project,
We did.
didn't we? Yeah. And it'll be fun to see them. They were amazing. We saw them in Bexhill, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
They're amazing.
Yeah, Hayes played with them. Oh, I don't think we really knew them then.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how they ended up playing in Bexhill.
no,
It
in
was
like
the
some
first
old
gig,
hotel.
because they're German Christmas, and they'd come over for, I think, only about 3 gigs.
Yeah.
I think they played up north, and on the way they played 1 gig in a hotel in Bexhill.
It was really good.
It was wicked.
They am good. But also other bands, Roughneck Riot, yay!
Yeah.
Because they've been on
Well, they've been
hiatus
off
for a
for
couple
ages.
Well, they were on hiatus and then due to come back, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So they're a year added on.
They did a few online acoustic things.
Some of the only ones I actually watched.
Don't
I know,
say that
I know
live
it's
on
bad,
air.
isn't it? Sorry. But it was
Everyone
really good.
listening who made one, I
I know.
apologise. Siobhan did not give a fuck.
Oh, Roughneck Riot got in early while my interest was peaked. But yeah, no, really good. It'll be so much fun. I'm so looking forward to MPF.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously going to be loads more bands, but this is a pretty impressive start.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout outs to Bobby Funk, it can be amazing. Follow Your Dreams, it can be amazing.
Pizza Tramp.
Yeah, Pizza Tramp on there.
Yeah.
You can see him.
There you go. There they are. There they are, as if anyone can see that. It's really good radio, as always. Fresh, we didn't mention them earlier.
Oi Polloi. I think Oi Polloi were going to play the last one that got cancelled, and I was really looking forward to seeing them.
Aww.
I've never seen Oi Polloi before.
Have you not?
No.
Oh, I really thought you...
I
really thought you in all your years, David.
I know, I should
I
have.
thought you'd have seen them.
That's terrible, really.
Oh, that's going to be good. It's going to be bloody good. Very exciting. But yeah, tickets are selling really quick, so get in soon so you don't get disappointed, because they sold out many years before.
Many years before?
Many years they've sold out.
Oh, you mean many years at the festival? I
Yeah.
thought you meant they'd sold out years in
Oh,
advance.
years ago there was this one time they sold out. Oh, no, they sell out regularly, and everyone's very excited for some festivals, and I think this is going to be the first big... Well, not the first, but probably the first big one. So.
Yeah. Well,
Excited.
speaking of very exciting festivals, have you heard about the Kentucky Redneck Rave?
No. What?
So the Kentucky Redneck Rave was an event that happened a couple of weeks ago. I don't think that they suffer from COVID in Kentucky by the looks of it.
Aww.
Because they had a 5-day festival.
Oh, gosh.
It was organised by a country rapper called Justin Time.
Have
you
I
heard?
heard of him?
I don't
know.
No. I'm not sure.
Time. Or maybe I'm thinking Justin Sane from Anti-Flag.
Oh,
No, very different people.
Maybe his brother. And it billed itself as America's wildest and craziest country party.
Wow.
But unfortunately, 14 people were arrested, 48 people have been charged with
Only 14?
incidents including strangulation.
What?
Someone had their fingers severed. Someone was impaled on a wooden spike.
No.
I don't know which bit of I know what you want to ask. I don't know whether or not they're bum. And there was
That's really not what I was going to ask.
and there was an alleged throat slitting.
Oh my god.
This party sounds fucking brilliant.
They really...
not in any way. So basically, this festival took place in a tiny village,
Yeah.
which is described as being so small it doesn't even have a stoplight.
How many... Were there lots of people there then? Did it say?
Yes, so there was more than something like 4 times the population of the
town?
Of the town.
Oh.
There was 20,000 tickets were sold.
Jesus Christ.
And the sheriff's office doesn't usually open for 24 hours a day, and they had to put on extra staff in order to cover just on the off chance. And
They needed it.
Sort of a good job they did, because there was so much violence.
So much throat slitting.
This fellow Justin Time, who I won't pretend to have looked into because I just couldn't bear it, to be honest.
Justin
But I don't know what a country rapper is. I can only presume
No.
it's probably the worst music in the entire world.
I can't imagine it'd be very good.
He's absolutely fucking loving it, and they're holding another one in October.
Another one, even though they had throat slittings and impalings.
Yeah,
Well,
why not?
Maybe that's a success, I don't know, in the Redneck Rave Society. I don't know, I can't claim to know anything about this.
But yeah, there's quite limited information about this, and I think it's probably because the police just couldn't deal with it. So people were getting stabbed, and they just weren't really. It's just like, I think someone got stabbed. I think someone got impaled.
I feel like 48 people getting charged, whilst that is a large amount, if it got to the violence of, like, impaling and throat slitting, I don't feel like 48 out of 20,000 isn't that many.
Well, the sheriff said they were going to do what they were going to do. We wanted to be good hosts, but we also wanted them to be good neighbours and visitors.
Oh.
Which I don't think they were.
It doesn't sound like they were.
The first thing that I thought of when I saw this was the Gathering of the Juggalos, to be honest, and I thought that was relatively comparable. But actually, you know, this is what happens, you see, if there's no clown love.
If there's no clown love.
You put 20,000 people
if there's
in a lawless place without clown love, what's happened is impalement.
There's no psychopathic trio, or what is it? No, it's a duo.
Have you forgotten how many insane clowns there are?
I don't know, there's a lot of bands. I'm surprised to find that there was more bands. What was the other one? Twisted? Anyway, let's not go back. If you want to know more about the Insane Clown Posse and their lovely religion, we did a thingy about juggalos. When was it? Many weeks ago.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
The Juggalo episode.
The Juggalo episode.
The first vehicle that came through, they found meth, marijuana, and an open alcohol container.
The very first one?
Yeah. And then one of the occupants had 2 active warrants, so they took him straight to jail. He said, well, this doesn't bode well for the weekend. And it did not.
The very worst one.
So if anybody's up for some, like, real end-of-the-world shit, go to the Kentucky Redneck Rave.
I like not having my throat slit, so maybe
there's
not.
Absolutely there literally is. I mean, there's pictures of it, and there's obviously not even a consideration of, like, social distancing or masks or anything like that. Like, that's all completely gone out the window. And in fairness, obviously, America has been loosening up a lot of those laws and stuff. But still, this does not look like something that would have happened in the middle of a continuing pandemic.
No. Oh dear. Well, in very different news to that, my next bit of news is referring back to another person from one of our previous episodes, the lovely Polystyrene, who we mentioned lived in St Leonard's around this way for the last bit of her life. And there was a crowdfunder set up by the 1066 Music Blue Plaques group, which apparently existed.
I think it's a new group.
I think it is quite new. I think it was set up specifically for this, actually.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but anyway. And they finally managed to get the plaque up. So there's now a lovely blue plaque for Polystyrene up on a house in North Street, St Leonard's, for anyone who's local and listening, to go and have a look at it. It got put up a couple of days ago.
I think it got put up on her birthday.
Put some pictures up. Yes, it did. Put up on her birthday, which was also, it would have been her 64th birthday. It was the 45th anniversary of when the Sex Pistols played on the pier, because it was her birthday when she went to see them, wasn't it? And that led to the X-ray specs being made. So yay!
And the next one is for John Martin.
The next one is for John Martin,
the infamous alcoholic wife beater. So, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The nicest Matilda Scoundrel song is written about him.
Yeah.
So
agreed. There's a nice song about a horrible man. So Fangoria magazine, the horror magazine, have announced that a feature-length documentary is being made at the moment, and I think they're crowdfunding for it as well, called Mental Health and Horror. It's being billed as a feature-length documentary about the positive impacts and cathartic releases that horror can have on those living with mental illnesses.
Aww.
And I thought this was quite interesting, partly just because it's quite an interesting subject. There's not a great deal of information about the film itself, but I was thinking that it's quite interesting if you take into consideration the sort of how different the world is in comparison to people's concerns in the past about horror. And, you know, if you go back to, like, our Satanic Panic episode and that sort of stuff, generally speaking, horror movies have always definitely been seen as something that negatively impacts everybody's mental health, which is obviously an incredibly simplistic and quite stupid outlook. But I'm surprised in a way, even in this day and age, that someone's actually making a documentary about this. I'm interested to see where it will go and what they're actually what their findings are. It's going to feature interviews with horror fans, film critics, film historians, filmmakers, producers, writers, and professionals from the mental health world.
Oh, nice.
I have a horrible feeling with this that it might be a slightly oversimplistic view of the subject matter. What are your opinions about mental health and the impact that horror, the positive impact that horror might have, that isn't just going to make you a serial killer immediately, like the Washington Wives thought?
It depends what kind of angle of horror you're talking about. If you're talking about, like, the schlock gore stuff, then it's just pure enjoyment, and who could be sad? I definitely don't, but I guess I don't think that, like, the previous concerns about, if you watch this stab 'em up film, then you're going to go out and be all stabby. Like,
no.
I think
I think there's a lot of different ways they could look at it. I suppose it could be really simplistic. This could be rubbish. This film. I mean, it does run the risk of really treating it in a overly simplistic way and sort of talking about crappy modern horror films that are made up just of jump scares or something, and how jump scares might help you deal with anxiety or something. There's I feel like there's really simplistic ways potentially of looking at this subject matter. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I suppose it's in a lot of ways, certainly most of the horror movies that I would watch, and a lot of these were included on banned lists and were seen as being really terrible. They're just so silly that it's like watching a comedy film.
Yeah.
I mean, that in a really simplistic way, again, not to oversimplify, it cheers you up.
Yeah.
And I suppose but I'm hoping that they'll find something much deeper than this. I'm guessing that they'll probably put some probes on someone's head and make them watch The Exorcist and then say what this does to your brain and
be like your senses being heightened or something.
Yeah.
Because then I think in a weird oh gosh, if you want to get really, which I'm sure that this won't be the angle, and especially not of 80s horror, but of things like thriller horrors from nowadays, not just the jump scares, but I'm thinking more Midsummer counts as a horror.
Yeah.
But it's not really a jump scare 80s kind of style horror, but that has a very clear mental health kind of angle.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they're going to touch on that sort of thing or not.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope that, I don't know, I wouldn't see the benefit in it necessarily, and I don't think it's widespread enough to be a theme for all horror films.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I don't understand what kind of angle they'll take on it, to be honest.
It'll just be interesting
Other than maybe,
to see, I think.
I can see that there'd be a challenge to a previous idea, but I don't know what their current...
I mean, the fact that it's being made by Fangoria and that one of the contributors made a film called The Vengeful Nun Who Wouldn't Die makes me think they're going to be concentrating on proper schlocky horror.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be quite interesting. By the way, just to make a small apology, our cat has joined us as a guest on this podcast. And she was purring, and I was worried that it was going to come out on the thing, but she's actually just snoring now. So if you can hear a little snore in the background, that's our special guest.
Yeah.
Clockworthy Skeffington.
She's got her own chair and everything.
We set up our little table to do our podcast every week, and I set up a chair and set up my little thing, and then she just appeared and sat on it. So we decided she's a special guest.
Yep, she's got her own chair. Aww.
She heard me, so she stopped snoring.
Yeah. Right. So, my other news story, very highbrow as always. The Nathan's world-famous hot dog eating competition went ahead on Independence Day, I've noticed, the 4th of July. So last year they did it in a quiet room with no one being there, and yet, fat men still shoveled hot dogs into their face.
I have to say, I was surprised by the footage that I saw of this. They're not that fat, these people.
No! I mean, the one who won is a slight man. I mean, he's wearing a big T-shirt, but...
Yeah, I think slight is pushing it. Let's not go to extremes. But he wasn't someone who... Anyway, because I was going to say how many hot dogs he had.
Oh, well.
Ruin the news story.
So this year, they did it in front of 5,000 fans at the baseball stadium at Coney Island. So instead of just being at Nathan's in the quiet... whatever, they did it in front of tons of fans. Maybe that's where they normally do it, I don't know, but it was a stark contrast to absolutely no one last year. The guy who won is called Joey Chestnut. He's a little... yeah, I know, it's a really nice name. And he's a little bit of a famous so-and-so in these parts, because last year he won eating 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes.
Fuck me.
Dogs and buns. They make it very clear that dogs and buns.
They do make a statement.
Because you can take them apart and eat I don't know, swallow the hot dog and then just mash up the bun. But this year he won. He beat it by 1 and got 76. The next closest was 50. This man is just smashing it. There's a little video footage.
That's not smashing it.
No,
just to be
it's
clear.
disgraceful.
That's not,
But the footage that I've seen is from ESPN, which is a sports channel in America, and they're the ones who aired this with a 10-minute countdown, and they're reporting on it like it's actual sport. They're and Joey Chestnut, he's got quite a lead, he's 12 dogs ahead. And I was what?
Don't they say something like "It's great to be back," isn't it?
Yeah.
Something at the start. I could just.
Or
hear
like,
them
this
going,
is a sight to behold.
This is a
or
sight
something.
to behold. Fat men eating hot dogs with people
But
watching.
not just even eating hot dogs, they've all got like a bucket of water. And so what they do is they like pick it up and dunk the entire thing in water and then just mash the bun into their face. And it's just like bread slush with a bit of every now and then disgusting hot dog. And actually, I must say, Nathan's famous hot dogs
I was going to say
are not very nice.
So I can't really be a food critic for the most part. But having been vegetarian since I was 17, one of the only items of meat I've eaten in the last however long it is. 7?
No, 7 years,
27.
sorry. Yeah, 27.
Was a Nathan's hot dog. Because Nathan's is a very iconic place. And Coney Island, I love Coney Island as a place. Coney Island is the beach resort that's right at the south end of Brooklyn. It's really kind of rough around the edges, but it's where they have like the freak show, and they've got like the boardwalk and the mermaid parade and loads of really cool shit in Coney Island. It's such a great place.
It's where The Warriors was filmed.
It's exactly where they're based.
Yeah.
And really cool fun fair, like just everything you could want, pinball, like all sorts of awesome shit, like the ultimate like trash Americana place. Yeah, so I thought, fuck it, I'm going to eat a hot dog.
Yeah, it's where they have the hot dog eating competition. This hot dog must be all right.
And you were eating meat at the time.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I was.
And
I watched you eat it, and you were like, you took a mouthful, and you were going, do you know it? It's all right. And I thought, oh, I mean, he doesn't look that impressed, so I ate a bit of mine, and I was like, oh, mate, like, I eat meat, and I do not like this. Because I think they eat beef hot dogs in America, which I find weird. I mean, it was all awful now anyway.
But I couldn't have eaten, I didn't eat one, so I don't think I could eat 76.
And they're dense things. Anyway.
And it's weird, because I remember them being quite big.
They
Again,
are
I'm
big.
not a hot dog expert over here, but they're quite big. And those guys, when you watch them on the video, they're literally just deep throating the thing. It's just, they grab it by the far end, and it just goes straight in.
Shaft.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. They must just like mash it with their throat or something.
I think they do, which is disgusting. But anyway, if there's any way of getting this video onto the YouTube playlist, I'm definitely going to do it because it's quite an event.
Well, I think that we should probably play a little sample of the man getting his prize, because I don't know who the dude is that reads it out, but it is something to behold.
Yeah.
Just listen to this.
Look on his works, ye mighty and despair, for he has surpassed the kings of Egypt with 76 Nathan's hot dogs and buns.
Hot dogs and buns. He surpassed the works of the Egyptian kings with 76 hot dogs and buns.
It is like it's one word. It's like hot dogs and buns is one word in that man's vocabulary.
He's just beautiful. I don't know if that is Nathan. I think Nathan's has existed longer than this old man's in life.
Nathan's
but
definitely dead, but I think it's still owned by the family. I don't know why I know that.
I mean, he's definitely dressed up like him, so I wonder if he's one of the family.
Oh, he's probably just an actor that they dressed up like the cartoon character on the front of the Nathan's
Maybe.
thing.
Although he looks quite unwell.
Well, I was going to say he's eating 76 hot dogs, but he hasn't.
So the guy who's won, just an extra bit of information, his nickname is Joey Jaws, like it. 14th
How is his
win.
nickname not Joey Chestnut?
That's his name.
Is that his real name?
That's his real name.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I thought that was a nom de plume.
But he's won this is his 14th win. That's how many years he's been doing this.
He's just going to be dead from eating hot dogs.
I wonder what he eats all the rest of the year.
Well,
they have to practice for these things, I think. So he probably has like practice runs in his kitchen.
Well, at least he surpassed the kings of Egypt.
I mean, it's extraordinary what he's done, isn't it? Extraordinary. Good boy.
Well, talking about Americana and phenomenal culture, like a fat man eating 76 hot dogs in 3 minutes, I noticed a small story and I'm going to sound like a terrible old man from a meme now.
Can't wait.
So get
Can't
ready.
wait.
Brace
Which
yourself.
meme? Which meme?
Buckle in.
Oh.
So the Butthole Surfers, who we've spoken about on this podcast before, fucking amazing band.
Beautiful.
Largely amazing from the 80s, but made some decent albums in the 90s as well. Did become quite popular in the later 90s. their image, or the image from some of their albums, has been picked up by the streetwear brand Supreme, and they're releasing a line of clothing based on the Butthole Surfers.
I did see this. That is weird.
Now, they've already done this with Massive Attack, Daniel Johnston,
Oh.
My Bloody Valentine, and the Velvet Underground. Now, I am fully aware and have seen a number of memes which involve some horrible man chasing a girl, and the man is screaming, name 3 songs or something like that, at the girl who is wearing, a Ramones t-shirt or a Oasis t-shirt. I appreciate that it is now not as fashionable to point out that without culture, without the art behind these t-shirts, they don't fucking mean anything. I am aware that I am completely out of touch with the times by complaining about this in any way, shape or form, but here's my point.
Go for it, Dave.
The Butthole Surfers were unquestionably a band that could not exist in 2021 for a lot of reasons. They weren't problematic in sort of any major way, but they were fucking dangerous in a way that just would not be accepted in the modern times.
These are the bands that just took. This is the band that just took shitloads of LSD and was just a fucking mad mess.
lived in a bus with a dog.
Aw.
And
Are they still alive now?
Called Michael Ferrier or something.
The dog's called Michael Ferrier.
Yeah, something like that.
So, are any of them still alive now?
So most of them are alive now. They
wow.
all look extremely old and extremely haggard. In fact, they're all alive still. They're all alive.
Good on them.
But they would set fire to cymbals in tiny venues. There's lots of nudity. There was some sex on stage. There was lots of things that just would not be accepted in 2021.
Yeah.
So what the fuck's streetwear brand Supreme are doing by bringing this out as if it's a fucking fashion line with all of, and they've specifically stuck to the early albums that were all released on really independent labels and stuff. It just makes me angry. And I know I'm the man. I know I'm the man screaming at the girl, name 3 songs. I know I am. But it still makes me extremely angry and I can't help it. Now, Butthole Surfers never made any... I presume that they're involved in this, I'm guessing. And they've never made any pretense that they're not in it for the money. They were on indie labels throughout the 80s and then signed to a major label in the 90s. They never pretended that they weren't just businessmen, basically.
Yeah.
And they've all gone on to do a lot of production work and stuff. They're mainstream. They're very unusual people, but they've sort of made lives for themselves in the mainstream. So they're obviously involved in this. I also am annoyed at them in the same way, but still, I'm not under any pretense that this isn't a thing. But a hoodie with the artwork to, I think it's Rembrandt Pussy Horse on it, one of their albums, 168 quid, and a shirt. And a shirt which has... It doesn't really even have an album. I think it might have their self-titled EP, but it's just on the... It's not in the centre.
Okay.
It's a shirt with just a little print on it. 150 quid for a shirt. And if you click on click on their link and go through and look at their shop, it's all just these horrible modern twats.
And Butthole Surfers didn't even wear clothes.
They really didn't wear any clothes at all. So I just want to bring this up because I'm annoyed about it, and I know that I shouldn't be annoyed about it, and I know that I should be able to get over this, but I can't, and I won't.
It's your
I
right
saw
to.
someone, and it makes me annoyed because I've seen a few people with Daniel Johnston t-shirts on recently, and I always think, there's someone who's got a good taste in music. Now I don't know. Who knows? And here's one other thing. When we used to run a cafe...
Yep.
Sorry to whoever this was, because it's a complete stranger, but I'm going to tell a story.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
We had... There was a youngish girl, I don't know how old, came into
15.
the cafe, walked up the thing and was ordering something. She was wearing a Cramps t-shirt. Really wicked Cramps t-shirt. And I said, and Siobhan was in the back, I think, cooking or something, so I don't think she heard this. I said to her, "Oh, mate, Cramps, amazing, wicked t-shirt. Do you like the Cramps?" And she looked at me like I was a fucking moron. She looked at me like I was an alien who had come down from space and was making a comment about something that she was wearing that she had no idea was anything that anyone could possibly comment on. So I kind of just, I let it go. I didn't say anything else, and I felt very awkward and was made to feel extremely small. And took her order, made the food, did whatever. And then what whilst I was busy in the kitchen, then afterwards, Siobhan took the food over to her, and I just overheard Siobhan, in her dulcet tones that you've all heard on this podcast, go, "Oh my God! The crabs, they're so amazing!" And this girl just was silent. I don't think she even said a word to you, did she?
No, I remember what she said. She said, my friend's making these t-shirts. I was like,
Please leave me alone.
Oh, you don't know what we're talking about. I get it now. And then I came back and you were like, yeah, I already had that conversation and I feel so small.
So here's the thing, it's not the girl's fault. I'm not having a pop at the girl. The girl doesn't even know who the
even
crabs
know.
are. She doesn't know. She's just bought a t-shirt that she likes.
Yeah.
But music is important. Culture is important. The reason that people wear t-shirts of bands that they like is because the music has touched them in some way, and it's an important thing. Just make a t-shirt of something else. Just make a t-shirt that says trees are nice. I don't know, people probably make that.
But I was about to say there's tons of t-shirts that say things like that.
Like, just make up a new fucking idea.
Exactly.
I don't understand why the streetwear brand Supreme are making clothing lines and charging hundreds of pounds for them for fucking Daniel Johnson, who couldn't sell probably 100 of his cassettes if he tried.
No, so
Poor little bugger.
poor little Daniel Johnson. He could never afford a Supreme t-shirt.
No, he couldn't.
No, he couldn't. Nor should he.
And he probably couldn't fit into one because he got really overweight, and Supreme probably don't make very inclusive sizes.
That's true.
I'm making a lot of presumptions there.
We should send him something. No, he died,
He's
didn't he?
dead.
Oh, he's long gone. Oh.
We'll send him a Butthole Surfers t-shirt to his grave.
That's so awful.
I'm getting annoyed about this, and the more I talk about it, the more annoyed I get. So, let's move on to something nicer. I think we've got a very special edition this week of Norfolk News.
Alright, my darlings. We've had a lovely weekend of it this week for before this episode's recording, because we actually got to go and do some out on the road reporting. So you can fuck off EDP 24 and you can fuck off Evening News, because we got to go see Norfolk News for what it really was.
We packed up the little Breakfast Punks news truck with
The
its
Fiesta.
with a tiny satellite dish on top.
Oh, yeah.
A bird shit. And we took it to the road, didn't we?
We did.
We interviewed the locals. We looked for some stories.
We did, and
Did we find any?
Didn't find much, but I thought we'd just let you in on our nice little trip. First thing I must say, Evening News and EDP, what are you on about with all these road traffics?
Oh, it was a
beautiful trip down. Beautiful, so clear on those roads.
It was a fast run there, and it was a faster run back. And we drove from Norwich to Great Yarmouth.
There you have
and
it.
there was not even a suggestion of traffic.
Not a peep.
And I didn't see any murders.
No,
and I'd like
no cannabis factories, which is all I read about.
And
although I did smell a lot of cannabis, actually.
True, but that's
now I
hardly
think about it.
any different to anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I was gonna say, I'd like to say,
yes,
there wasn't even any peregrines.
Well,
but I'd be wrong. And if I may tell this story, because I think that you'll tell it in a nicer way, keeping in mind that in Norfolk News over the last number of weeks, I don't know how many weeks, Siobhan keeps bringing up the fucking peregrines who are hatching in a tower somewhere.
Norwich Cathedral,
as if they haven't been brought up before. One of the reasons that we went to Norfolk, apart from obviously the news that we were looking for, the deep dive into Norfolk News, was to see Siobhan's dad. So her dad lives in Cromer, which is a lovely little town.
Beautiful
actually,
little
Norfolk Coast.
Norfolk Coast. Go get your Cromer crabs. Obviously, I don't. I'm vegan, but some people do feel inclined to do that kind of crab and shit.
Went for a little walk around Cromer. One of the first fucking things that comes out of his mouth is, "Oh, there's some peregrines up there," and there's peregrines in the fucking church in Cromer as well.
They're everywhere.
Oh,
the Norfolk peregrines are out and they're hatching. So I was actually impressed that we did get to get an update on some real Norfolk news while we were there. What else did we do? We stayed in a hotel where a man happened to have he was a very strange fella, wasn't he? That man, when we got to the hotel, the lovely Norwich Hotel, a 2-star, I think it is, 2 or 3 star, very posh.
I don't know if we should give out his address.
70s conference centre hotel. That was nice. But as soon as we got there, he was making pleasantries. "Oh, where have you come from?" "Oh, we've come from Hastings." "Where?" You know, near the coast. "Where?" All right. So Dave forwarded our address as if to catch him out, and then turns out he's lived there, but he said, I don't live there anymore, but my family stayed in Rye. I've not seen my children in 15
No, it was
years.
so much worse than
and
that.
It was just...
He said he was just talking, he wouldn't shut up, and
Yeah.
he kept talking about Hastings and all the different things he's done in Hastings. Then he said, I came up here and my wife and kids went and lived in Rye, and I, just trying to make like the most basic of like...
Shut up, because we've got a train to catch.
Well, no, niceties.
Yeah.
Said, oh, nice, like about Rye, because
Yeah.
I would think he would be someone who would think Rye was nice.
Yeah.
Turns out he was, by the way, but that was later on in the conversation. I said, oh, nice. He went, not really. I haven't seen him for 22 years.
I'm not surprised, mate. You ain't much fun.
Oh my God! And then he just told us everything about his marriage breaking down and how he's moved around from hotel
And
to hotel.
is that coffee cart still outside Hastings train station? I was there before. Anyway, so fuck that off. That was a bit of a weird start. But then we went to Cromer, like Dave said, and saw the peregrines on the top of the tower. That was very nice.
We didn't actually see any peregrines.
Do you think they're fake? Are you trying to...
No.
Are you
No,
trying
I
to
trust
say
that they were
something?
there, but I'm just saying they weren't, like, we didn't see them.
And then we got to go to Norwich Market, where there was loads of skinheads at the back by the toilets. That was a bit odd.
There was a lot of skinheads. I think there was going to be football that day, though, wasn't there? So they might not have been racist skinheads. They might have just been idiot skinheads.
They might have just been idiot skinheads.
They could have been both.
They were hanging around by Anderson's, where I used to get my big jeans. Back when I was, I guess you'd call me a grebo back in the day. I don't know.
I would have called you nothing in the same.
Or a grunger, whatever you'd call those bastards.
I mean, you're missing some of the most important things that we did, because we went to, and again, this is one that you brought up another.
I'm getting.
time.
Oh yeah, I'm getting
you're getting
there.
there, right?
I'm getting there.
I'll leave you to it.
Well, we went to Anglia Square.
We did.
We got to see QD
We
quality
did.
discounts.
I have to say, I was very disappointed.
You
with
are
quality
horrendous.
discounts.
Yeah, but you've been I don't know what you'd say. You've been spoiled because we've got ESK down here, ESK.
ESK is so much better than
actually,
QD.
Fuck off.
QD's
QD
bigger.
is lush.
Yeah, but it's too nice. It's like walking around a department store.
No,
It's
it used to be a lot shittier than that. The one in St Stephen's has got a it used to have an escalator that made horrendous noise. You weren't meant to get on it for sure. And that was definitely a lot cruddier. I must say, the one in Anglia Square is a bit spick and span
It's
now.
really nice.
It's a bit nice, isn't it?
It's
but,
like Wilkinson's or something.
But they used to sell pretend crisps and all sorts.
Well, they don't now.
No, it's a bit of a shame.
They've just got like big brands. It's nothing like ESK. ESK is the place. If you're in Norfolk and you're all Bertie Big Bollocks about your QD, come down to Hastings and go to ESK.
Norfolk, I'm still with you. I love QD. We also went to a cafe.
We've spoken about this cafe before.
The Moonlight Cafe. Have we ever spoken about the Moonlight Cafe?
This is the cafe in which we were once in the past invited to
and
a learning disabled girls Anne Summers party.
She had a tattoo on her face?
No, that was her mate, I think.
Oh, either one. We didn't go. We didn't go. And we sat in some old man George's regular table and pissed him off. Yeah. This time, not so much, but that's not even called Moonlight Cafe. It's called Cafe Norwich, but it's still very nice.
It's delicious.
Delicious. Loads of really.
I mean, they don't.
food.
They weren't. Oh yeah, we. Getting a vegan breakfast in there was an adventure, I would say, because your breakfast looked like a breakfast. I ended up with, but they did massive portions.
That was lush.
I had mushrooms on toast and some hash browns, and I was inundated with food.
There you go, Cafe Norwich or the Moonlight Cafe. Anyway, Magdalen Street. I fucking love you. I love Norwich. It was so nice. We went and saw my mate Tanya. She worked on the stool in town.
We also went to Great Yarmouth.
We did also go to Great Yarmouth.
And we got so drunk in Great Yarmouth that we ended up watching the football, which is
it's not good,
unbelievable.
It's not good.
I mean, it might not sound unbelievable to most normal people that probably just watch the football, but I didn't think the day would come when I would watch another football game.
I also got very nearly severely attacked by a seagull for just trying to help its baby. Now, I've heard this. I have heard this. If you see a seagull's baby on the floor, you're meant to leave it alone.
Yes.
Well, I did, but he was
different
walking in the
circumstances.
road, and he wouldn't get out the road. He was just staying there, and we were like, "You're going to get run over, little girl." So I tried to push his. Well, not push him.
You chased the baby,
him off,
yeah.
and this fucking mum dive bombed me. Fucking fucking... we had to go back to the car a few times, and I swear I had PTSD. I couldn't...
I had PTSD about that poor little fucking bird that obviously couldn't work out how to fly.
He was still there.
And he was just wandering around in the road. Well, no, we saw him later and he was on a roof. So somehow we'd managed to get up
I
there.
think we then saw him on the floor.
Oh, now I'm more worried.
He's all right. His mum's watching.
God bless.
And attacking anyone that go anywhere near. But, yeah.
So
there's
not really any news, is there? Did we find any news in Norfolk?
No.
I think it's probably time for a song, isn't it?
Yeah, I reckon so. Sorry, it ain't much to talk about, but I really did like our Norfolk adventure, and Norfolk, you held me well. I loved you.
So we're going to play a song from a band called Unstoppable Swedish Show. They're from Liverpool. It's from their new album, which is really hard to say, because this is about my fifth take of it. It's called Analogy to an Allergy. I got it that time.
Analogy to analogy.
They just did a live stream online, which was done on the 1st of July, which I think you can probably watch now online. This is possibly the most out there music that we've played on this podcast.
It's totally weird.
It's fucking great. The song is called ADHD, and yeah, this is the Unstoppable Swedish Show. Welcome back to the Breakfast Punks podcast. For this episode's main subject, we're going to be talking about the American comedian Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks was a comedian who was around in the 80s and early 90s. He died in 1994 from pancreatic cancer. His life was spent mostly, really, just being a comedian. So there's not a great deal of life story to tell you about him as such. He was born and raised in Texas to a very normal Christian family. And he started doing stand-up when he was a very young teenager and kind of sneaking out of his house and going into Houston, which was the closest city, performing stand-up there. He got really big in Houston and then throughout his life basically ended up just on the road pretty much. He died very, very young, but managed to do an awful lot of really exciting stuff in the meantime, in my opinion. So we're just going to we weren't really sure exactly how we were going to talk about this because, like I say, there's not a great deal of story with Bill Hicks, really, apart from just that he spent his life on the road doing these amazing comedy routines. There is a documentary about him. There's a couple of books about him. We watched a documentary called American, the Bill Hicks story, which is really, really excellent. And we've watched a number of his stand-up shows. But I don't really see that there's a great deal of point in us attempting to tell you what the content of those stand-up shows are, although I'm sure they'll come up here and there. But I thought maybe we'd start with... so, like I say, I'm a big fan of Bill Hicks, but I can't really say that I'm a particularly big fan of stand-up comedy generally as a genre. So I thought we'd start with that. What are your opinions on stand-up comedy generally?
So weirdly, I was going to say that I don't really have any interest in stand-up comedy, but when we started watching some of the Bill Hicks stuff, I've seen loads of stand-up comedy live. Like, there was a period of my, late teens, early 20s, where I went to see quite a few people live.
Who would that have been? Were they famous people?
I went to see Frankie Boyle live a couple times.
Oh, right.
I've seen Alan Carr live. I've seen...
I don't like him.
I also saw a comedian called Mark Watson doing loads of his pre-tour stuff in a teeny tiny room, and it was just absolutely amazing. He's a Welsh comedian that I think was on loads of the on telly comedy
on telly
comedy panel programs, they're all a bit rubbish, but that's the thing that happened. People weren't just doing stand-up comedy anymore. It's just all these comedic panel shows on TV. And I think that's really ruined.
Well, I hate those panel shows, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure if you get a funny person on them, but they always... I don't really watch much TV.
No.
I don't watch any TV now, but I mean, haven't really watched a lot of TV in the time that those panel shows have probably been at their peak.
Yeah.
But the ones that I've always seen just seem so staged and so unnatural in it. But the problem with them, to me, is that they're trying to look as if they are natural. So obviously with stand-up comedy, that's all staged as well. I mean, we watched a lot of Bill Hicks and he repeats a lot of the same jokes and a lot of these things, and I'm sure that's true of all comedians, and that's totally fine. That's like a band playing the same song every night. There's no issue with that. But the problem is if you put a comedian in a place where they're supposed to be pretending to have a natural conversation with people and they're being a bit funny, I just find with all of those programs, they just come across to me like just not making it up as they go along.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for having a comedian on a panel show. So when comedians used to turn up on Have I Got News for You amongst politicians and you know what I mean, if you intersperse them, or if they turned up on Never Mind the Buzzcocks or stuff like that, it kind of made sense. But when it became pure, here's 3 comedians against 3 comedians and who's going to be funnier, it's just this is weird. Whereas stand-up comedy, I feel is good, but it's just everything's so far removed from that now. And now I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you who modern day comedians really are.
Yeah, no, I don't.
So I think when it's good, it's so good. When it's rubbish, it's just so painful. And nowadays, I don't even know what's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to those panel things, I think one of the other problems that I have with it, that has just really occurred to me, to be honest, but I think is probably a really big one, is that if you get a bunch of people to sit around and they're all funny, right? They'll all crack jokes here and there because they're funny people, and that's fine. But the thing is they're not constantly cracking jokes.
Yeah.
If you've got a funny mate and they were just continuously trying to be funny, that would be so annoying.
Yeah.
And I find that on those panel shows, for that exact reason, like what you said, that they're all just trying to be funnier than each other or trying to get noticed or whatever.
Exactly.
It's just say something normal or thoughtful as well.
Exactly.
Because that would be just as interesting as a fucking bad joke.
Exactly.
That you've obviously just prepared and wanted to say.
Exactly. No, I think the odd comedian and the odd kind of input is fine, but yeah, I just those full on comedy things make no sense. Mock the Week, I think, was like specifically who could be the most funny about
I hated that program.
a thing that's happened.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That doesn't even make
Yeah.
sense. So yeah, I think that became the kind of downfall of modern day comedy. But then I don't really get to say that because I haven't really watched any stand-up comedy in so long, mainly because we've been put off by this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I don't really get a right to say that it's not good anymore, because it might still be really good, but it's definitely not as culturally relevant as there was a time where stand-up comedy was like
Comedian.
stand-up comedy was like a big part, and like stand-up comedians were really quite revered, probably like my childhood.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely got really big,
Yeah.
and there was like some of them were doing shows at Wembley. And
Yeah.
stuff. Like there was a time where suddenly stand-up comedy became
Yeah.
very like in vogue. I don't know if that's past or not really, because I think that had a lot to do with them all being on TV a lot, so they did sort of become celebrities, and I'm sure loads of them did fucking dancing on ice
Stilts.
or whatever all that shit is, or like they went in for singing, like hilariously went in for singing shows or something.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm sure there was loads of shit like that,
Yeah.
which we would have totally missed. So yeah, you're right, I've absolutely no idea. I mean, I imagine, as with everything, it's not as black and white as stand-up comedy is good now or bad now. It's that there's probably really good people and probably really shit people, I would imagine.
But what's interesting is, at a time when Bill Hicks was doing it, none of this existed, other than you sometimes had stand-up bits on talk shows in the evening.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the only
I don't know
place
if they
for
still
it.
do that on those American talk shows, though. I think they still probably do bring out a comedian, not just to be interviewed, but to come out and do a
But people
thing.
do like skits now, don't
Yeah.
they? And like little sketches and stuff. You don't really get like... I mean, I don't know. I don't watch any of those programmes, so who knows?
But definitely when Bill Hicks was doing stand-up comedy, it is absolute, like, bottom, I think, at that point. I mean, he was relatively successful and became quite successful. And I think it was successful in a kind of much smaller way. Like, I think people went out to comedy clubs. And I imagine, potentially, in that context, it was probably even more successful. But you weren't going to become a star, really.
No.
I mean, I guess, like, Richard Pryor and I guess Eddie Murphy, although he probably only got famous because he made films and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't going to be... You might be lucky and get in films.
Yeah.
As you know, I think like Chevy Chase and people like that probably started, but I don't think. But with Bill Hicks, I think one of the things with him was that he just always wanted to be a comedian. He wasn't trying to become a actor, or he wasn't trying to become a celebrity or anything like that. He just wanted to do stand-up comedy. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I've only been to see stand-up comedy, I think, a couple of times live in my life, and I've really enjoyed it both times, but I think I've probably been smashed too, and I think that's quite an important aspect. And I don't think I've ever seen... When I was a kid, I went to see Rob Newman, who's probably not very famous now, but he was a part of the Mary Whitehouse experience, and then he did Newman and Baddiel. He was David Baddiel's partner, who was the intelligent one in that. I don't know if he even does stand up anymore. I think he went on to like write some books and stuff. But yeah, I like Stuart Lee a lot.
Yeah, he's very good.
But whilst he does make me laugh, I like Stuart Lee for his ideas more than I like Stuart Lee for his comedy. I think if I watch anything with him, it's more to listen to him talk.
Speak,
Mark Thomas, I really like. I've never seen him live, but I've seen like a bunch of his kind of stand-up stuff, and his stuff is like really political, and that's really cool. I like comedy programs. Like I love Alan Partridge and Brass Eye and that sort of shit. But I mean that's sort of different. I don't. It's not that I dislike laughter. I think I just don't like. I just don't like the. I don't think I like. Generally, I don't like the sort of fakeness of just trying to be funny on cue.
Here is me telling a joke.
Yeah, it immediately puts me off a little bit, and I think that's how I feel about stand-up to some extent.
But I guess so. What's interesting about Bill Hicks for me? I'm someone who did not. I knew who Bill Hicks was. That's pretty much it. I knew he was a grumpy comedian from America who died in the early 90s. That's pretty much all I knew, and that he was probably quite political in what he spoke about. That's kind of the background knowledge that I had. So it's really interesting having watched his footage, watched his shows in the last couple of weeks, and kind of getting to see how interesting and how thoughtful he really was, but how like natural he was at it, and it really wasn't like... I can see why you, as someone who maybe isn't so into stand-up comedy, really likes Bill Hicks, because he kind of a bit like Stuart Lee, he has ideas and he speaks about things.
Yeah.
Except Bill Hicks does it in far shorter sentences and does it in
and I think it's much funnier as well.
Punchy, horrendous, one-lining, going down a funny rabbit hole of just shouting, but saying so much that's interesting.
I mean, it's part as well. It's not just a simple to describe. If you've never seen Bill Hicks before, it's like it's part stand-up comic and it's part sort of exorcism or something. I mean, it's just like he's got absolutely. He's unlike anybody on stage.
And his mum said. In one of the documentaries, she says that she said to him, having seen him a couple of times, that you're a preacher. You're not just a comedian. The way that you deliver things is that you are a preacher in what you're saying. I mean, obviously, she comes from a really Catholic background. Yeah. But she didn't not like what he did.
Yeah. I think she was quite shocked when she first saw him when he was like 15. Yeah. He was talking about masturbation.
Well, that's the thing. He was 15, 16, sneaking out of the house. They used to jump out of the window, get in his friend's car. They'd go down to this comedy workshop in Houston, and then he would be like the main guy. So they couldn't even drink. They weren't even allowed to really go in. And they would be the main draw. And they weren't... At this point, I think they said in the documentary, he wasn't swearing. He couldn't have been drinking.
But he didn't drink or do drugs until he was much older. Yeah,
and he wasn't saying anything wildly dirty or awful. But yet, he was so funny. And everyone in there who were full-on adults just, bowed to him, thought he was so genius. Yeah. So, I mean, that's an amazing... imagine being 16 and being so good at something.
Well, I suppose the other thing, just in relation to age, that's important to point out, is that Bill Hicks died when he was 32. So, I mean, he did all of this stuff, and to be honest, he looked quite a lot older than 32, I would say. Yeah. I never saw him as being a young person. Some of the videos we watched, he must have been in his mid-20s and stuff. Yeah. And at no point do you really think that. But so I suppose it's probably worth... We watched loads of his stand-up, and like I say, there's no point in actually going through all of the stuff. I would really recommend you watching it. But I think it's probably worth mentioning, most of his sort of outlook on life and what came out of his comedy was very much anti-religion, organised religion, very anti-war. A lot of his outlook, not that I realised this at the time, but a lot of his outlook is quite similar to Robert Anton Wilson, who we talked about in our Discordian episode, about kind of ideas of reality and what reality actually is, and very much like anti-marketing, which I think is something that a lot of people point out isn't very in vogue in modern times, when everybody is a more or less a product of on their Instagram pages or whatever. But I think he had some incredibly important things to say about going back to the Butthole Surfers t-shirts that we were talking about earlier. He does a lot of stuff about how if an artist sells their music to a big corporation, then they should be stricken from the artistic register.
Exactly. You're the devil.
And loads of stuff, but I mean, it's all very dated now. So most of the two really famous performances, and which are probably the two that you should watch if you've never seen anything before, are Revelations and Relentless.
Yeah.
And more or less, they're both on Netflix, and also I think actually both on YouTube. There is a little bit in those two of material that kind of is used in both, but for the most part, I think that's more or less all of his material, I think. Yeah. Because a lot of the other ones, there's a real big overlap of he does the same joke a lot. When I was a teenager, I saw Revelations, and it absolutely fucking blew my mind. And I think one of the reasons why I don't view it, I can because some of his comedy hasn't aged necessarily all that well. And I find it really difficult to look at Bill Hicks in a critical way, because I saw this at an age where it just totally blew my mind, and it really did have an impact on my outlook on the world, I think. So I now find it really difficult to kind of look at it and say, oh, this maybe this doesn't age very well, or maybe. And I do remember at some point, I think you'd been out and you came in, and I had some Bill Hicks on that I was just watching clips of, and I remember you coming in and making a comment about it being sexist, I think, or misogynist or something. And by the way, he definitely is misogynistic. A lot of the, or not a lot, but some of the material unquestionably is misogynistic.
I think I walked in at a particular moment where I was just like, oh Jesus Like,
but one of the
thought this
things
guy
that
was funny.
that's what you said
Yeah.
when we were talking about doing this thing. And I wonder how you feel now, because when we rewatched all of his stand-up, and I hadn't watched, so like I say, the Revelations is the one that I watched loads as a teenager, and so when we rewatched it, I've seen it so much that I wasn't really expecting to be like blown away by it, but I have to admit I really was.
Yeah.
But I had that in the back of my mind, like which was that bit that was on when Siobhan walked in and thought it was a bit dodgy, because whilst there is definitely, like, he talks about sex a lot,
Yeah.
and there's definitely stuff about his own sexuality, and I do think that, like, a white man from a first world nation talking about their sexuality is not exactly the most in vogue thing in 2021. But I'm not really sure. And again, tell me if I'm wrong, because I do find it really difficult to judge this sort of stuff. I'm not really sure that anything that he said was outright sexist. It was acknowledging the fact that he wanted to have sex with girls, and definitely he was looking at them as sex objects.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the one thing that I thought of was that he seems to, in these anyway, and I know there's an awful lot of material out there, so I mean, I'm not standing by him by any means, but for the most part, when he talks about women in a sexualized way, it's because they're being presented in a sexualized way.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of stuff about advertisements, and he does a bit where he says, and I've got a feeling that possibly when you walked in, it was the bit where he was talking about if a major corporation could do like their ideal advert, it would be a completely naked woman masturbating and just says drink Coke underneath, right? Now, that, I think, would probably be seen as a misogynistic joke, and I can see why to some extent. But in a lot of ways, what he's doing, he's not really talking about the woman who he's sexualizing. He's talking about the corporation who want to do that to somebody.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, and again, I really don't want to just make excuses for him, but I just wondered what your opinion of was that once we'd actually watched the whole of the.
Well, I think. I don't know. I think I'm charmed quite easily, which does not help. But I think watching the whole thing, you just got a feel for his intelligence and his other outlooks on life that I completely agreed with the way that he was presenting them. Yeah. So a bit of me, when it got to the points where he was being really like over-sexual, it wasn't ever being rude about women, and it wasn't ever being horrible. Like you say, he definitely saw them as sex objects, but I think more because he was really young when he did this. He was probably. He seems like a bit of a no. But he sounds like a bit of a like he might have been a bit of a loser in some respects.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he never had a relationship.
Yeah, he strikes me as someone that was talking about a thing that he probably didn't really even necessarily experience all that often. He was definitely always talking about things in terms of desire, so things he would do and things he'd like to do and all this other stuff, but it was never like stuff he'd actually done. And so a bit of me, it doesn't forgive it, and I'm not trying to excuse it, but it was presented as very much a fantasy thing, and a bit like with that, not necessarily make-believe, but a bit like outrageous for the point of being outrageous, which is exactly what he did about everything else. So I kind of saw it within that. There was definitely moments where I never felt like he was being sexist. I definitely thought he was being misogynistic, but my opinion was that I can't imagine this man gets the opportunity to be that rude to many women in real life, because I can't imagine he's presenting himself in a way in which he's having a lot of friendships, let alone relationships.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely didn't have many relationships.
Which doesn't make it better.
Well, I was going to say, I suppose the problem with that way of thinking was like I would love to just jump to agree with you, because, like I say, I kind of just want to defend him at any with any possibility. But I suppose the problem is that if you're a person who's standing up on the stage and you have quite a lot of influence, it doesn't really matter whether he's getting any sex in his life or whether he's having relationships with females. It's more about the message that he's putting out to what is probably thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands probably at this point of other people, and I suppose I can see that.
I think nothing he said would have necessarily, like, I think the first time I bumped into a bit, like you say, when you were watching it, and I came home one day, I was just like, bloody hell, what the hell is this? I thought this guy was a politically, intelligent man, and I've walked in on the bit where he's
into a pretend vagina.
Yeah, exactly. When he's just talking about something else. But having watched the whole thing, I don't think there was anything that he directly put out there that was so influential. Like, you know what I mean? I don't feel like he was influencing other people to be horrible. I don't think he was ever horrible. And I think everything he did was in the taste of, like, I want to do this. I want to have sex. I want to do this. It was never like, I'm going to beat a woman, or she's just a sex object. He didn't necessarily do it so bad. He always did it as kind of like women were this thing to be desired, and which made me kind of feel like it fit with the thing of maybe he never really got as much as he wanted, and all of his jokes were always around desiring a woman. Not all of his jokes, even just the ones that were very sexualised. But yeah, again, it's not our place to have to defend him. And all of his other jokes are just so...
Well, so that's the other... So
good.
We'll talk about this a little bit. I found an article on the Guardian website where a pair of young stand-ups kind of talk about the problematic aspects of Bill Hicks, and we should talk about that. But one of the things that I think comes back to what you're saying, and that I think about within this article, is that one of the problems, this is the problem I think with cancelling people generally, and I'm not saying anyone's trying to cancel him, but I just mean like that attitude of like someone's either 100% good or 100% bad, is that Bill Hicks had so many incredibly important ideas, I think, and presented them in such an incredible way that I think could still have influence, even though he's talking about fucking New Kids on the Block and some advert that he saw on TV from 1986 or something. I think even then, if you can just, if even watching it today, I think if you just replace New Kids on the Block with whatever shit is there, it all is really important. But the problem, and this is the problem with the culture of someone is either a misogynist and terrible or an amazing person who's perfect. Particularly when looking at historical figures who, whilst the time that he came from doesn't excuse any of what he says, and I think he would, if he was alive today, he'd stand behind it, I think. But obviously it was a different time, so therefore stand-up comedy, particularly the sort of clubs that he spent most of his career in, which were tiny clubs, he became quite popular in the UK, but in America he more or less, he did a few TV appearances, but for the most part he was just touring these little redneck towns and playing to sort of 75 people, and I imagine saying not that this excuses it, but saying really sexual jokes in that sort of environment would probably have got him a really good reaction. And I suppose there is a bit of like a carrot on a stick. But the point that I was trying to make is really that the fact that he said some things which are a bit questionable shouldn't, in my opinion, annul all of the incredible things that he said that are really, because actually just going back to, it's not a great comparison because they're very different people, but going back to Robert Anton Wilson in the 60s wrote a lot of anti-feminist stuff. And you don't hear about it so much, and it's not his most famous material, and so you could quite easily read some of his stuff and not even have any idea that it was there, but it's there. It's quite well thought out, but it's still aged horribly and wrong. In hindsight, you look back on it, most of it is really well thought out, but based on a really incorrect principle that was of its time, of the late 1960s. And I do think that probably late 80s, early 90s was an incredibly different world to the world that we live in now. The world that Bill Hicks was kind of railing against. And a lot of the problems are still here. But yeah.
And I guess my opinion was, and it's not for me to speak for him ever, but all of his ideas, how forward-thinking I feel like he is about all other aspects, I feel like this bit may have progressed. If he was still here today, I don't think he'd be telling the same exact jokes about women. I think he'd probably be doing all the other bits, but I wonder what his opinions on how he would present a sexualised joke would come across. However, he did always say that he doesn't care that if he offends anyone, that means they just didn't get it. So
I mean, he was definitely very misanthropic. But had a really positive message. And I suppose that's maybe I see myself in that a little bit. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of the part of him that I think really really hit home with me in a lot of ways.
I loved his... I mean, he speaks about so many different things. Like we've already said, he's really anti-religion, really anti-war. His anti-intellectualism bits are some of the funniest things. And they're probably the things he was thinking of earliest, because he was born and raised in, like, back-end Texas. And some of the footage that we've seen is, I think where his first filmed thing, Sane Man, is done, is in Austin. And he just berates the audience, and not just specifically the audience, but like berates people who are kind of like backwater America style people, and this anti-intellectual angle.
Yeah.
But in such a way that absolutely everyone in the audience is laughing, and he doesn't necessarily hate where he comes from. I mean, he probably does, but he still loves his home place. He still does all of his shows there. But yet he's able to do this really weird, loving, but quite vicious attack on his, like, the culture in which he was brought up. Yeah, he still loves it. He still wears, he had the best mullet going.
So
he definitely doesn't pretend.
Look great,
He doesn't pretend he's not from where he came from, but he doesn't hold back from, like, this kind of really clever way of tapping into the anti-intellectualism, but which was all over America.
But so here's something that's interesting. I don't know where we go with this, but one of the complaints on this Guardian article that I talked about was from a comedian called Rob Oldham, who's a current comedian. He's young. Or he was. This was written in 2019, I think. But he says he kicks down an awful lot. The fool people are always women, gay people, Iraqis. His routines deliver devastating one-liners to members of the hospitality industry, like the "What are you reading for?" routine, which I think is what you're talking about. And the person sort of says that as like a negative. It's like, but I feel a little bit like, and it's quite interesting. Definitely so he says they're Iraqis because he does loads of stuff because the Gulf War had just started.
Yeah.
He does loads of stuff where unquestionably he's against the war and unquestionably is for the people that got killed. But it's true, he does sort of do funny little impressions of like Iraqi people. He does do funny little voices and stuff. Now, the message that he's putting across is, I think, 100% cannot be touched in this day and age. And in a way, it's the same. So like with like women and gay people, you could... I'm desperately trying to think through all of his things because I might now be saying something that's totally untrue. But I feel a little bit like it's the same. It's like he's willing to do the cheap gag. I don't really think cheap isn't the right word, but like he's willing to do the silly impression of someone, or he's willing to be really overtly sexual. But the message behind all of that, I think, is generally pretty right on.
I think. Do you know what? I query his feelings around gay people for sure. There was a few things that he said that I thought, and it was never gay people are wrong. It was always that he isn't gay. Like he would do a thing and be like, no, that's not me.
Yeah, totally.
And so he'd be very much this like thing that I feel he may have frowned upon. It was I don't know if that's his culture. I don't know if that was his exposure to the world, and we'll never know exactly. I haven't read anything about his feelings.
I don't think.
But everything else he did was so right on.
Yeah.
This is why I feel like I don't think he was sexist. He may have been a bit misogynistic, but I think that was not. I don't know. I just feel like he was so right on in so many other areas that I can't really believe that he could also be homophobic and sexist.
Yeah.
But again, he's not here. I don't know.
To some extent, you could say it's a different time. I mean, I'd say a few things. One of the things that definitely hasn't aged very well is he does an awful lot of bits about wanting people to be lesbians because he finds it sexually attractive. That definitely hasn't aged. Hasn't aged well at all. That's that's obviously like not good in this day and age. I feel like he does have a lot of really strong bits, whilst these aren't connected necessarily. He has a lot of strong bits about basically people just doing what the fuck they want. I think if he has one message, it's that really. It's like you're on this you're on this world for one chance. Do what you want. In that context, obviously, that's quite libertarian as far as like if you're gay, fucking be gay. Like that's. But you're right. He never outright says that. Yeah, I think that was much more normalised at the time, which definitely doesn't excuse it. And he's supposed to, he's someone who is ahead of his time in so many ways, and so much of his work is appropriate and can still, I think, be have some worth to it now. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that there's this whole chunk of it that isn't. Yeah, it is a shame. But his kind of like forward thinking stuff, and some of his just like. Outlooks on life things are just so fucking wonderful that I was just like, I can't believe how appropriate this is now. So I would hope that he would be a bit more right on if he was here today. Like his stuff around, he's never really pro drugs, but his stuff around. Oh, I think he's very pro. No, but he is pro drugs, but he's never saying go take drugs. He's just saying you need to hit. His opinion on drugs is his opinion about far bigger topics within the news and within what we all know and what we find out from the news and what we can find out in life, and making sure that we become intelligent and don't just sit there and accept what we're told. Yeah. Because his whole thing about drugs is you're always told they're bad. Yeah. But I've had so many good times on drugs, so I'm not saying you should go take drugs. I'm just saying
you only hear the bad stuff.
And I think that's part of a bigger picture about the fact that, and this is where reality comes into it, and a much bigger thing comes into it, is about how the news and the TV are telling you one thing, but actually what's really going on in the world and what you can really experience in the world is so much more than this tiny little vision of, like he says, American Gladiators, his 24 hours of American Gladiators and his loads of junk food and his, you know, and I think that stuff, if you replace American Gladiators with Facebook, is now.
Yeah, 24-hour news, we're still there.
I mean, people need to hear that, and I suppose it's about the way in which, because one of the problems that these young comedians have. So this girl Chloe Petts, who is another of the sort of young comedians that's discussed, she says, here's the problem: if an angry white guy stands in front of an audience spouting his opinions like they're 100% fact, people will be quite alarmed. Whereas in the 90s, that was kind of like the norm, you know, and I understand her point completely. Right, and I don't even disagree with it necessarily, but I would argue one of the reasons why Bill Hicks's work is so effective is because he takes that stance.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's whether it's a knowing stance or an unknowing stance in a way, if he really thinks he's 100% right about everything, or if he's sort of playing a character to get a certain opinion across. And I guess I give him the benefit of the doubt because the opinion that he's putting across in the big picture way, I think is, you know, this amazing thing. And so I kind of let him off all of the little bits in that context. And I think it's interesting. But the other side of it is, what I wonder, and this is going to sound a little bit like someone saying, oh, they don't make him like Gigi Allen anymore.
Oh, God.
Like, I do sort of wonder, like, if we're just going to find, I accept that unquestionably a white man shouting at an audience is totally, like, done. Right, I understand that, and it's not, and you know, we need to be hearing from lots and lots of other voices and that sort of stuff. But if you just sort of like remove someone because they're going to come out and be confident about their opinions, I don't know where that leaves us as a society, really. I mean, what is stand-up comedy? The people that are complaining about him here, the young comedians, sure, they might be doing it in a much more like knowing way, but there's still people that are standing on a stage in front of large groups of people with a microphone when no one else has a microphone.
Exactly.
So their opinions may be more right on and stuff, but they're still kind of even if they're not actually actively saying, "Here's loads of opinions. Here's my." And I think somewhere else in this article, like later on, they say, well, now we do, you know, we do it a bit more subtly than that or something. And it's like, well, so you're still doing it though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's no different.
I actually think the way in which Bill Hicks did it was deliberately unsubtle because I think he did it for shock. He did it for like, but you know what I mean? He's not doing it because he probably does genuinely think he's right, but he's doing it because he knows he's right, but he doesn't care what you think. He's not doing it to change your mind.
Well, his whole point is, you think whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he said from the beginning. Like, I say what I want, and if it offends you, I don't care.
But that's a really unpopular stance to take in 2021, isn't it?
It is.
Like, I think that I don't have a problem
what's really frustrating is his ideas are loads of his ideas are exactly what 2021 needs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people maybe wouldn't see it coming from a shouty white man like that. But I must say, I really, and again, this is where I say at the beginning, I'm easily charmed, is my fear is that I've just become really charmed really quickly by watching 4 hours of Bill Hicks stand up and a documentary all in one day. But I can see his flaws for sure. But like you say, the bits that were, I don't think his flaws outweigh his greatness by a long shot.
No.
And I think I hope that, because I saw that article that you're talking about that came out a couple of years ago, and it did get me thinking, oh shit, did I miss... Yeah. Should I be hating this man? As a woman, should I hate this man? As a person who lives in 2021 who's fairly liberal, like, should I hate this man? And I didn't really necessarily... I do see his flaws, but I don't... I think those perfect sets are, like, not worth... cancelling ever.
It sounded like you were talking about his balls.
No,
sorry, that was a real.
that
was a real. His perfect set is just so difficult not to look at.
But
so this might be a good time to bring up. You were talking about the fact that this is an angry white man screaming and shouting his opinions and being 100% certain of them, and how that doesn't work in 2021. I was about to say, well, I suppose imagine if that was someone who didn't have as good ideas as Bill Hicks and was maybe like a massive racist or something. Well, there's a conspiracy theory that Bill Hicks did not in fact die In fact, he became Alex Jones.
Oh God, the man who we've spoken about a few times.
I know. I did not know. I genuinely did not know about this conspiracy theory, or at least I didn't know how far it went. When we decided to talk about Bill Hicks, we're talking about Bill Hicks totally just because he's, you know, someone who I really liked when I was younger. I had no idea who Alex Jones was then. But this motherfucker just keeps popping up in this podcast every time. So there's not much to it, really. Someone's just made a video, a long video, about half an hour long, that they've made themselves, in which they take pictures of Bill Hicks and they put them next to Alex Jones, and they say that everything's the same, including the teeth. And it's quite amazing. It's quite an interesting thing. I will put the video on the YouTube playlist.
They do have likenesses.
They
both have southern accents.
But that's the thing. But I will say this: so they definitely look a bit like each other. I mean, there's no question that Bill Hicks didn't die. Yeah, and Alex Jones is actually considerably younger than him as well. I think,
and probably the complete opposite.
but there are. So this is where, and this blew my mind when I started thinking about it. All of the Bill Hicks does get into conspiracy theory.
He does towards the end, definitely.
Yeah, but he was really interested in Waco. He went to Waco.
That is so true.
And he made a film there, which isn't really worth watching. But he
talks about the Kennedy assassination.
He talks about the Kennedy assassination loads. So he did have, but I would say the two of them couldn't be more different. In both morally and in the way their brains work, in as much as Alex Jones sees a conspiracy in everything and has a kind of framework of what he thinks a conspiracy is, and therefore just applies it to absolutely every area of life. Whereas Bill Hicks is a very almost too thoughtful person who goes on these long questions reality a great deal and all of this stuff. But worse still, you put in Bill Hicks, Alex Jones conspiracy, and what comes up? David Icke talking about how much he likes Bill Hicks. So I don't know how this has happened. I really don't. But it's I'm not happy about it. But it is quite an interesting little tidbit, and I'll put some of that stuff up on the YouTube playlist. I suppose that the only other thing to talk about really is that. So Bill Hicks's life is incredibly sad as well, and I think that some of the stuff that we're talking about, and again, I'm not making any excuses for this, but when he was very young, he started drinking. I think had a lot of bad influences around him, and there's certainly, they talk about it in the film, that he introduced the part of his act where basically the audience would just buy him drinks, and so they would just try and get him as drunk as they possibly could. And he was
a quick drunk as well, because he'd never drank. As much as he was young when he started drinking, he'd never drank until almost the age he was allowed to drink. Yeah. And so he asked, like, oh, what should I drink? And they said, oh, you should have a this. And so he said, I'll have 7 of those, and just downed them immediately, because he'd never tasted alcohol. So he didn't know
I think he is someone who wanted, all of his friends say this about him, and you can kind of tell this from just his persona, really. He's someone that wanted to go, if he was going to do something, he did the fuck out there. Like, and I think that's what happened with drinking. And he did become an alcoholic, and he died of pancreatic cancer because he abused his body so much at 32, which is not, 32.
And he was easy. Some years sober when he died, so all of this happened very quickly.
Yeah. And so the reason that I bring that up really is that there's a lot of material of his around. There's quite a lot of albums that have been made. There's loads of footage of him, obviously, some brief, and then there's some like properly made stuff. But I do think that some of the probably worst stuff that he came out with, you could attribute to drink, which doesn't excuse it at all. But I do also think that later on, when he found out he was dying, and if you see him in his last days, he's really fucking dying. Yeah. Like the cancer has really got him.
Although he told no one.
No,
his family.
No. But he just kept touring, and he kept touring and kept touring. But of course, this is a man who is dying at 32, and he's going out on the road and he's doing stand-ups, and some of them are fucking savage. Yeah. And as you know, an audience member will try and heckle him or something, and he'll just spend the entire set fucking screaming his head off.
He rolled on the floor screaming at them. He wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't wrong. And this is the thing: he could always, throughout being really drunk and throughout basically knowing he was just going to die at any second, he was incredible still. Yeah. In the things that he did, but he just didn't give a fuck. Particularly when he was dying, he did not give a fuck. And so as a result of that, and I think. In fairness, we should probably all put ourselves in his shoes a little bit. If you literally are 32 and you've been told you're going to die at any minute, and all you've done is just this one thing in your life, and it's the only thing you know how to do, of course he's going to have a few bad nights. Yeah. And of course, some of the things that he says, I'm sure, probably weren't in the context of 2021, very politically correct.
No, and I imagine that I think we watched a few, and having no knowledge of him prior to that, and having watched him at his like better, and then watched that, I still, I felt like I could reason, that he wouldn't have been proud of that, or that wouldn't have been him. Although, given his circumstances, he was probably quite happy that he was so angry and so savage at those times. But I'm sure that like a clear thinking version of Bill would probably have said that was much.
Well, maybe or maybe not. I don't know.
Who knows?
We can't talk for him, and nor do we want to, and nor are we trying to. I mean, I think it's. I feel like I have spent this entire thing trying to make excuses for him, but I really don't want to. I mean, I accept my own flaw in the fact that, like I say, he's just someone. It would be like if Ian McKay suddenly turned out to be a massive racist. I'd be so hard pressed to know how to deal with that. And like I can deal with it, and I can look at it in an intellectual way, but I just keep coming back to like how much this all meant to me at the time, and like seeing some of these ideas. And I mean, again, we can't really do it justice, but me experiencing these ideas about fucking reality and about about the way the world works, and even some of these conspiracy ideas and stuff, experiencing that when I was like 16 or something, living in a fucking suburb, where everyone just listened to Britpop, was like crazy. But I can't really. I mean, again, it was exactly the same as here in Minor Threat, or here, it was exactly the same sort of thing. It was just like, I genuinely, not to be overly romantic, I just don't think that my life would be the same if I hadn't seen Bill Hicks when I saw Bill Hicks. I think that's probably true. So I mean, naturally, I find it difficult to critique him, even though but I do accept unquestionably that there's some material that I wouldn't be jumping around telling people to watch.
True, but as someone, again, you come from one angle and I'm coming from, I'd not seen a Bill Hicks set until about a week ago. But maybe I've been charmed, who knows, but
he's not that charming in a way.
He's really not.
I mean,
he does
literally like one of my favourite ways that he starts a thing is when he comes out on stage and he says, "I'm Bill Hicks. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been touring nationally. So let me just plough on a smile and get through this shit with you lot in this room," or something. Like, he's not really a charmer, I wouldn't say, although he is charming in a way.
No, he's definitely, but just how wonderful his ideas are and how important and how they're so ridiculously relevant now. I just think everyone, if you've not already seen just even the 3 that are on Netflix, I mean, just go watch them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think if you just Revelations, if you just watch Revelations, I genuinely think.
But so for anyone who's not already seen any of his performances, Revelations and Relentless are on Netflix. Sane Man is too. It was a bit earlier, but everything that's in Sane Man is pretty much in Revelations and Relentless. Yeah,
and I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think most of it's on YouTube as well. So I will put it in the YouTube playlist, and I'll also put a bunch of there's lots of little clips of him, some of the best bits. What we will do, we're going to play a song now, but before we do that, I will play us out with just probably my favourite bit of Hicks, which I think everybody should hear, even if you don't watch it. But let's introduce the song, and then we'll pop that in beforehand.
Cool. So the song we're going to play now is from a band called Animal Facts, and the song is Penguins. It's a one-person band from Bristol, and the lyrics are all about the greatest facts about animals. That's so nice.
I knew you'd like that.
I saw you had Animal Facts written up earlier, and I was like, what does that mean? Amazing. It's from their self-titled album, which is out now, and it includes some backing vocals from members of Murderburgers, Don Blake, and loads of other bands. So that's really cool. So after the Bill Hicks bit, there will be Animal Facts with Penguins.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.
This is sweet, sweet trash.
Avoid fainting. Keep repeating.
I love what I see.
Leave the auditorium. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
For this episode, we watched Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers from 1988.
When you work in Hollywood, you learn fast that there's just two kinds of girls in a town like this. Sweet, shy, innocent ones. You know, the ones you want to take home to mom. And then there are the other kind. The ones you just want to take home. Sometimes they like to play a little rough, but then these aren't your average girls. Oh, no! And this isn't your average movie. If you haven't figured out by now, there's something for everybody. Well, almost everybody. There's action, romance, and a cast of thousands. It's Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. These girls charge an arm and a leg.
Detective Jack Chandler embarks on a mission to track down a woman in LA's seedy nightclubs, only to come face to face with a bloodthirsty cult of lethally beautiful prostitutes. Is he the next victim of Hollywood's demented chainsaw hookers? Oh my gosh. So we actually own this film, which may give you a hint as to whether we like it or not. Dave, what did you think of Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers?
I thought so. Last episode we did Black Roses that I absolutely love, and now I didn't even think about this. Now we did Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers that I absolutely love. So, you know, I really love it. So I don't really know what there is not to love about this film. I mean, again, in terms of misogyny, there's a lot not to love.
It's possibly the worst,
unquestionably.
I think the film's last line is, besides, she's got a great set of tits.
I think he might say that line about 5 times throughout this film.
Times.
Yeah. You definitely have to watch this in the spirit that it was made, I think, if you're going to enjoy it. But if you can do that, I would say there's a lot to enjoy. So the cast in this film for trashy 80s low budget movies couldn't be better almost. Yeah. So you've got Linnea Quigley, who is Trash from Return of the Living Dead, and somebody in millions and millions of different,
she's the boobs in budget. Every
yeah, well, I don't know if she'd consider herself the boobs, Siobhan.
Is she not the boobs?
Well, she has boobs.
Or she's the body.
She's
always
she's an actress.
Well, in every film I've seen, she just takes all her clothes off.
Oh, she does like to get her clothes off, yeah, unquestionably.
And she's an actress. Bless her.
It's got Gunnar Hansen, who was Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a bit of a strange role for him in a way.
Yeah.
Michelle Bauer, who's another girl who is just in loads and loads and loads of these low budget films in the 80s. You would probably know her face if you saw it. Dookie Fly Swatter, who's a bit more of an obscure one, but he pops up in a lot of stuff. He's in Surf Nazis Must Die, which is a fucking amazing film. And
well, he helped write the script or do something for Blood Diner.
He did,
because he came up in the
So we talked about him briefly, I think, when we reviewed Blood Diner.
He's quite an interesting.
He's a very unusual man. He's now, and this I'm sure I'd said this, but he's in a horror punk band still. He's quite an old man now, called Haunted Garage.
And he's got lovely vampire teeth.
He has got vampire teeth. I'm not sure if they're permanent or not.
I feel like they would be.
He doesn't look like a man who would have vampire teeth until it turns out he just does.
Yeah, I feel like he just got them.
I think he's probably a bit eccentric, but I like him a lot. And this guy Fox Harris, not quite so well known, but you would probably know him. He's the guy that drives the magical car in Repo Man.
Of course.
And he pops up in loads of stuff, and I absolutely love this guy. He's in a bunch of awesome other movies as well. He's in Straight to Hell. He's in Dr. Caligari, the weird remake from 1989. He pops up in this film Alienator, which is another just like super low budget. I'm fairly confident that he used to make really weird porn, which I haven't seen. But he has just got the most unusual demeanour.
Face.
Yeah. Everything. It's like everything he says is just said in this such a weird, but like almost kind of like weirdly poetic way. Yeah, he's obviously such a strange man. He's dead now, sadly. And equally, Linnea Quigley. Everything that she says, I don't know what her acting style is really. It's a little bit like. And she's like this in every film she's ever been in. I love Linnea Quigley, don't get me wrong. She's in some of my absolute favourite films. She's in Creepazoid, like I say, she's in Return of the Living Dead. She's just in absolutely loads and loads of stuff. Night of the Demons. She's fucking great. But her acting style is so bizarre. It's as if the words in the script that she's reading have no connection to each other whatsoever. She doesn't speak in sentences. But I've heard her speak normally. She's really intelligent and like really capable. But as soon as you put a camera in front of her, she just sort of says a word and then says another word. It's like putting it into a robot voice on a computer or something. It's incredible. But in a funny sort of way, maybe it's just because I've watched so many of her films and I've got used to it. I kind of quite like it. It's got a certain style to it.
Well, it becomes the overacting almost.
But
hers is kind of slightly under, but it's in that same vein of like people just going, "Oh my God, you want to come here and shoot me?"
Totally.
It's just so. It wouldn't be 80s horror without it.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Again, I've said this before about some of the other films we've watched. It's the type of film that I absolutely just fucking love. Like, this is so up my street, and I don't know why. I don't know why. It's not great. It's not particularly well made. Although, in fairness, considering they made it apparently in 5 days on the leftovers of time they had in a studio for making another film or something. It is really cool. Like, a lot of the sets are really cool. There's loads of really great photography throughout, like, in Hollywood, just driving around the streets and stuff in the late 80s, which is the sort of shit that I really like to see. Loads of chainsaws.
So many chainsaws.
And there's just loads of lovely... One of the things I love about these sorts of films is the sort of little touches of nonsense.
Yeah.
The one that jumps to mind is that there's a point where they go to an Egyptian temple to, like, do whatever they're going to do, and they pull up in the car, and the lead character sort of goes, "God, I don't know how we're ever going to find them," and then there's just like a sign in front of him that says "Temple this way."
Yeah.
Just like stupid, almost like Naked Gun type stuff. And I just love that sort of stuff. One of the other probably important things to mention about this film is that it kind of has like a film noir pastiche. I mean, really not.
Like, very loose. I think they kind of say that in the making of documentary more than it's noted in the actual film.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
clear.
in fairness, I think they would try and, but they did also say that everything was one shot. Like, they didn't have enough film to film more than one shot of each shot that they needed. So I think there was one bit where Michelle Bauer was dancing, and she was dancing to a different song to the one that's actually in the film, because they hadn't worked out what song it was yet, and they were like, just don't do anything that matches up to the song.
Lyrics.
And she does, and she just like does this bit where she points at a ring at the point where I guess in the song they were listening to they were singing about a ring or something. And he was just like, we just have to leave this in now. And it is really weird now, because it's just that she dances this song and she's just like pointing at bits of herself that don't make any sense to the song and stuff. But I mean, that sort of shit I love as well. The director, a guy called Fred Olen Ray, is the absolute king of these sorts of films. There's almost no point in going through his filmography, because he's just continuously made these types of films. But a little tidbit that I didn't know about him, which I found out from reading Wikipedia this morning, is that aside from his work in the film industry, he was also a professional wrestler. And his wrestling name was Fabulous Freddie Valentine.
Oh!
And we saw an interview with him afterwards on like the extra for the Blu-ray. God, we own this on Blu-ray. I don't think it needs all them pixels, really. And he's a dude, I think. I really like him.
I was just going to say, his son is in Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. The 10-year-old sat at the bar at one point just having a conversation with the adults, which is weird. But his son also went on to be a director and directed Two-Headed Shark that we watched a couple of weeks ago. So, it runs in the family.
Synchronicities abound with this episode. I don't know what's going on.
So much synchronicities.
But yeah, so in conclusion, I fucking love this film. What did you think of it?
I also absolutely adore this film. It is very boob heavy. Like, it is extraordinary. This isn't a reason that I love it. I mean, again, it's fine if it is for whoever watches it. But it's immediately boob heavy, and it gets to the point where you don't expect anyone to wear clothes. You get so used to people without them on. But I never feel like the women are not in total control of what they're doing. They're the fucking villains with chainsaws bashing the shit out of people. Yeah. And they're doing it in such a way where it's just absolutely hilarious. There's no frills with the budget for the effects, so they're just like clothes off, chainsaw on, and then people just throwing cups of red at them.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
and throwing like fingers that they bought at the Hollywood toy store. They were just like, no frills. We just bought fingers and limbs from a Halloween shop and threw them at them. Yeah. So, to be honest, that immediately becomes very like accepted, and then the women are just fucking hilarious. Michelle Bauer is like my absolute favourite, because she's got this fucking psycho eyes that she's so really like great with, and she's just like you could actually, not that this is real in any way, but like she's really good at playing this like silly, scary, inner cult that is prostitution, but also chainsawing men to death. There's a bit where at the beginning, she takes a guy home, and then she's like got the music on, she's taking all her clothes off, she's doing the funny dance pointing at a ring, which no one understands, And then she's just like, da 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 da, gets all this plastic plastic wrap out and starts putting it all over the walls whilst dancing to her song and still making sexy eyes at the man. And he's like, what's all that for? And she's like, oh, you know, I like to be protected. And it's like, we all know, like, it's just beautiful because you just know he's about to get hammered to bits with a chainsaw.
When she then goes over to the bed to, like, with the intention of killing him, but first of all sort of having sex with him, she goes, talk about stiff joints. Yes! I quite like.
There's so many wonderful lines. I think she says to him earlier, you construction workers really turn me on. And he's like, it must be the way we pound nails. It's like, what is going on? It's just like so ridiculous.
I mean, whoever, like, the entire experience of writing and making this film must have just been, it looks like so much fun. And I think that's probably one of the big aspects of it.
And I think they really did have, like, an absolute ton of fun. It was just messing around and being silly for, 5 days, and they made a ridiculously funny film out of it. The main guy, John Henry Richardson, I don't think he'd been in much before this, and has been in tons of these films since. Yeah. He's genuinely really good. Yeah. Like, I think he's actually quite... I think he just likes having a laugh, because again, in the documentary thing afterwards, like, he's just like a bit of a dude as well. Yeah. But he's actually quite good at playing his role, even if his role is just schlocky, pretend private detective who's just always smoking.
I think all of these people ended up making loads of films together, didn't they? Yeah. I think, like, Fred Olen Ray directed and produced, like I say, loads and loads and loads of films, and I think these people were all just... They've all been in it. They were all just continuously working together, almost from that point to now, because they're still going.
Well, that's it, and this was their first film together, so I think everyone feels really happy and, like, kind of warm and fuzzy about this film, especially in the documentary afterwards. So they're just like, I'd not done anything until this, I'd not done much until this, and... They just kind of all came together, and then they're like best of friends since and carry on making films. So it's just such a silly film.
It begins with a disclaimer at the start that comes up on the screen as if it's really serious. That says, the chainsaw used in this motion picture are real and dangerous. They are handled here by seasoned professionals. The makers of this motion picture advise strongly against anyone attempting to perform these stunts at home, especially if you are naked and about to engage in strenuous sex.
Oh, but that just reminds me, in the it's not in the film, but in the little documentary afterwards with Fred Olen Ray, and he's like, this is my wife Kim, and it's just like this, like, quite, who is genuinely his wife, but like a busty woman who's just like licking his head or something. And there's a bit where, like, he goes into the bedroom and she's like surrounded by like limbs with a chainsaw, and she screams at him, get it up or I'm cutting it off. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. I love it. I fucking love this film. I love this film anyway. The picture on the
really
front
iconic, actually.
Is so iconic, and it's amazing, and it's of Michelle Bauer, not of, because I think they keep saying Linnea Quigley is the main actress. She's the
I think
draw.
She was more famous too at this point.
Yeah, she was the draw, because they were like, we have to get her in it because she was so big in Return of the Living Dead and Creepazoids. But yeah, Michelle's picture on the front is just so cool, because she's just like in her pants with a chainsaw, looking crazy psycho. But it's such a brilliant picture.
And they talked about that, didn't they? They just did it on the roof. I think it was before they'd even filmed the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure she was...
Just a promo shot.
I'm not sure she was even cast in the film. I think she was just brought in as a model, and maybe that's how she got cast in the film. Maybe
I'm not sure. But it was early. It was
and it was just like, we need a chainsaw, so we'll get a really long chainsaw and take these awesome pictures. Yeah. And they show a bunch of like the alternate pictures, and they're all amazing. They're all.
And she
brilliant.
said it was so heavy that she had to just kind of like hoik it up, and they took a photo really quickly, and then she like slung it back down again. And with all that in mind, the photos are insanely amazing. It's like that kind of. It's got that. Bikini girls with machine guns kind of, maybe I'm just making lots of connections because it's just people in their pants holding things, but it's that kind of like what
it looks a bit like that Cramps video.
They did for the Cramps.
I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm totally making this up, so it's probably not right, but I bet Fred Olen Ray made some Cramps videos, and he might even have made that Cramps video.
Well, it's even the Cramps kind of music in the film. It's not the Cramps, but it's actually very psychobilly.
The soundtrack, and I don't know any of the bands or any of the music from it, and I haven't looked it up, and I can't find any evidence of like a track listing anywhere. It's great. It's good. Really brilliant. It's like, it's not really punk as such, but like you say, it's got a kind of rockabilly vibe.
Yeah.
But it's also sort of poppy as well. I don't know. It's really cool. I really like it. I don't know if it's who it's done by even. I think it's all different bands, but
No
Yeah, it's
idea.
definitely worth checking out.
No idea.
So, what would you give this film out of 10?
It's near. It can't be perfect because it's flawed in many ways.
I don't know if it is flawed in any ways.
Oh yeah, I know. I really like. I want to put it as like a 9 because it's nearly perfect for how ridiculous and silly it is. I can't remember what I gave Blood Diner. It's easier to watch than Blood Diner. And I think I gave Blood Diner a very high mark.
Yeah.
I think it is a bit easier to watch than Blood Diner.
They're
but
very
it
similar
is...
films. If anybody watched Blood Diner and thought it was absolute rubbish, don't bother listening
Don't watch
to
this.
anything that we've just said about Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
It's less... No, it's not less ridiculous. Of course it's not. It's about as ridiculous as Blood Diner. Blood Diner and Chainsaw Hookers are like two of my favourite films. So it's a bit silly to rate it any lower than a 10. But I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I can think of one film that I would rate higher.
That's exactly what I... Yeah, so
Yeah.
so I gave Black Roses 9 last episode, and I'm giving this 9 this episode as well.
Yeah.
And I think I saved my 10 for only one film.
Ooh.
I'm not going to
Which
tell
we
you what
never...
that
I was
film
about
is.
to say, I
No,
feel
no.
like I know what it is and we can't...
No, I've mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, I don't know
So-
why I'm looking as if anyone can see me looking at the poster on the wall, but it's there.
But because I think that's absolute perfection.
Yeah.
And I think every film... every other film that I really like is 9. But I think next episode we're going to have to do a real shit one.
I was
We're gonna
about to
have
say
pull out
we're
Neil
doing one of
Breen
my
or something.
favourites soon, so we can't. I can't say that film.
Dick Shark. It's time to do Dick Shark.
It's not time to do Dick
It's a
Shark. Isn't that 4 hours long?
3 hour long film by someone called Bill Zebub.
We're not doing that.
No, I haven't seen it, so I don't know how bad it is, but I'm pretty sure it's called Dick Shark.
It's called Dick Shark. It's gonna be good. If you want to hear Dick Shark on the next episode, then let us know.
Yeah, if we get one person,
Get one
contact
person
us
tell
and
us
say,
to do it, we'll do
watch
it.
this 4 hour long film made by Bill Zebub
Called Dick Shark.
then we will do it.
We'll do it. I feel sick now.
Should we play a song?
Yes.
So I'm going to do another old song. I've been kind of saving these. So Crackle Records were a really amazing pop punk album in the 90s, and I listened to all of their stuff loads as a teenager. And I've been trying to space them all out because I almost just did all Crackle bands for the first 5 episodes of this podcast. But this is probably one of my absolute favourite of the lot. It's a band called dONfISHER. They were from Leeds. They had members of Chopper and Gan and Servo, who we played.
Oh yeah,
on one of
yeah.
these. And all they did was release one 7-inch in 1996 called Setting New Standards in Apathy. I think they played about 5 gigs or something, then they split up and they all went about with their everyday bands. And I fucking love this 7-inch so much. I can't tell you it's the best 7-inch that's ever been made. It's 4 songs. They never made, probably if they'd made something else, I'd not think as fondly of them. It's probably a bit like Bill Hicks dying in a way. It's important that these things have a short shelf life, I think. But yeah, so here it is. This is dONfISHER from 1996 with the song Obvious.
Just keep talking, 'cause there's enough small talk for
welcome back to Breakfast Punts podcast. We're pretty much done now, so thank you for listening to this episode. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram. Go give the YouTube channel a subscribe, because we're going to, as always, have a playlist on there for the episode. And
watch some Bill Hicks.
Watch some Bill Hicks, definitely, regardless of whatever we may or may not have said. Definitely watch Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, because it will enlighten your life.
Again, unless every film that we've watched and said is brilliant that you thought is terrible, in which case don't. Skipping that bit of the podcast, maybe.
I swear. And also, again, if you want us to watch Dick Shark, let us know.
Don't keep telling them.
If you've got any generic feedback or anything you want us to know, or any shout-outs or anything, just let us know. We like to just hear from people, because it's nice, and that's why we do this sort of thing.
Yeah, we actually had some really nice responses to our last episode. So if you haven't, people seem to really enjoy it. So if you haven't heard that one was about glam, hair metal, cock rock, whatever you want to, however you want to call it. So go back and listen to some of our old episodes, and thank you so much to everyone that did get in contact with us about that episode. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed it.
Also, shout out to my dad who liked the Juggalo episode.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
I don't know what that was about, but
yeah. Well, he didn't know what you were about either, because he said, "Oh, I have listened to your podcast. Actually, I listened to that one about the clowns," and then you went whoop whoop, and he just gave you a look like, "What the fuck?" So I'm not sure how close.
He knew what the whoop whoop was about. But yeah, anything you want to tell us, please do. You can message us on the Instagrams, or you can email shamcityroasters@gmail.com. We're always here listening to you guys, as we are thankful for you listening to us.
Some would argue it's the complete opposite of that. Yeah, it's just they're listening to us.
Yeah.
Or not, I don't know.
We are listening to people when they message us. It's a
two-way.
two-way. We're reading. I'm listening to it in my internal mind. In my internal mind, as opposed to this big other mind that I carry around.
Oh, it's like listening to the Bill Hicks.
Fuck off.
Should we finish off with a song?
Yeah, let's
and then
do
we'll say goodbye.
Yeah.
So we're going to play a song by a band called Clayton now. They're from Nantes. I think I've said it right, in France. Not Nantes, but Nantes.
Right.
Nantes is how it's spelled. You know
It's not... Yeah, it's fine.
It's from a new cassette that's just come out on Cat's Claw Records. Cat's Claw are releasing loads of new stuff recently, and they were kind enough to send us over some press about this release, and I really liked it, so we thought we'd play it. The cassette is called Escape, and the song is called Everything Will Turn Out Fine.
Aww.
Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Cheers, bye!
Bye!